All right, we have 132 days until the midterm elections. The Supreme Court handed down its biggest decision in nearly 50 years. Roe versus Wade repealed. Kurt and I will cover that and the rest of the Supreme Court decisions and the decisions still to come from this term from every angle. Then we'll take a look at what else has been happening in D.C. and what impact that might have on the upcoming election. All of that today on Dale Carter's America.
From the heart of flyover country, he's not on the far right, and he's certainly not on the far left. Like you, he's somewhere in the middle. This is Dale Carter's America.
It is really a shame, Kurt, that we don't have much to talk about today.
Yeah, we really don't.
We're
going to have to, talk about the weather or something.
First of all, you like my red shirt?
I do.
All right. For the folks who watch this on YouTube, and where can they get? Just YouTube Dale Carter's America.
YouTube Dale Carter's America. Yep, and we're on Rumble too.
Turn because I'm the wrong way here, Bob Watson, because the logo is on the left side, the camera's on my right, but you can see I'm sporting the color red today. Red for State Farm, and State Farm agent Bob Watson is one of our fine sponsors of this podcast. 7th and Main in Blue Springs, 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance, boats, licensed in Missouri and Kansas. Hell of a nice guy. Those who came to the live event at our other big sponsor, Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit, Jim Dingman's place, they all got a chance to meet Bob.
Absolutely, yeah. Got a chance to meet Bob. I think he maybe got some business out of it too, so...
Wow, yeah. Imagine that.
I know.
All right, I'll share my State Farm guy with you because his entire team, especially Terry at Bob Watson's office, she is amazing, and she has handled every crisis every crisis relating to insurance
I was gonna say,
that I've ever had.
That's a lot to take on.
They do take on a lot, and they're always there. Great staff to take care of you when you need them. I mean, usually you pay insurance, you don't even think about it until you're in the middle of it.
Right.
And then it's like, where's my guy?
Right.
Well, you don't have a guy. You've got a gecko. You've got Flo.
Yeah.
You've got something or other, right?
You've got an emu, and emus can't even pick up a phone or write or anything.
They don't have posable thumbs. Yeah. But Bob Watson does have posable thumbs, and he's ready to talk to you. 816-229-7878. Appreciate the shirt. Appreciate him being with us at the live event, as well as everyone else who came to the live event. What a nice night.
Yeah, it was a great time, man. Really, again, thanks for everyone that came out. We had a great time. We had a great crowd. And everyone was engaged. People were cheering and shouting stuff out and everything like that.
We're going to do it again because Funhouse Pizza has two locations. They're in my adopted hometown of Blue Springs, right down the road from Bob Watson's office.
Yep.
So at some point we'll do that as well. To the news of the day before we get into the SCOTUS, and SCOTUS is like its own category today because there's so much to talk about. But how about this? Now that they've come down internationally about women swimming, saying that you can't have a penis and testicles if you want to swim with the ladies, Katie Ledecky continues to rewrite the record books.
Yeah.
And I've seen pictures of her. She's an actual female.
I'm
not a biologist.
Pictures of what?
I'm not a biologist, but I think she's a woman.
Yeah. No, she. I remember her from back in the Olympics. I don't remember which one, but there was one particular Olympics that she was just crushing it. Breaking a bunch of records, winning a bunch of medals and stuff. And so it's good to see her actually, competing as a woman and getting some more records under her belt.
Exactly. I know that makes us haters, but we think that women ought to compete in Title IX sports. That's the reason we have Title IX in America, but this is international.
And I should say too, I don't really care about women's sports, personally. Sorry, ladies, but there is, this whole issue of actual women competing in women's sports, which has been making it into the news. So it's good to see progress, in that.
Would you rather watch women's soccer or the USFL?
Is that the new football league that they're doing?
Yeah. You'd rather watch women's soccer.
Okay, I guess
I don't even like soccer, but I would watch that over the USFL.
Yeah, I guess. I did see one of those on TV a couple weeks ago, and there was 2 people in the stadium.
Well, they're playing all the games in Birmingham.
Oh.
I mean, if it's Philadelphia versus Chicago, who the hell cares in Birmingham?
Alabama?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's where the Birmingham Stallions are based. I know too much about this, apparently.
Yeah, you do.
Let's move along because they have an airport in Birmingham, but God knows whether the plane's going to take off or not. The complaints against the airline industry are piling up, fewer flights arriving on time. And have you flown lately? You have. You've gone to the East Coast a couple of times.
Yeah, last time was probably 6 or more months ago.
Did they move your flight?
Oh no, it was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the way out, we got, I think, switched or something. I don't remember, but yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the airports are really crowded. I remember it being really crowded.
Yeah.
Especially coming back. Like flying out of KC is easy for the most part. We'll see when they build this new airport if that changes. But we flew into Reagan National in DC, flew in and out of Reagan, and getting out of Reagan was definitely a hassle.
A challenge.
Yeah.
When we flew down to Florida for vacation, it was supposed to be a direct flight to Fort Myers, and then they changed it. It was going to go through Atlanta, so we had to hook up there. And this Western vacation that my wife has finally convinced me after years and years to go on, hopefully I won't get eaten by a bear.
She's been posting bear memes and bear videos for like months now.
I know.
Like 4 months
And she
now.
had me take out extra life insurance. I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah, well.
I wonder about that. Anyway.
Bob might have a claim, you know.
You never know. Okay, so I'm flying out on United Airlines, right? She's going to be out there a week ahead of me, so I'm flying out alone to meet up with them. And that flight has now been moved 3 times.
Oh, wow.
3 times. And it's still like a month away. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. But that's what's happening in the airline industry. It is a nightmare to fly. You heard about the big earthquake in Afghanistan?
I did not.
Yeah. They had a big earthquake over there, 6.1, 1,500 people injured in that earthquake. And you know what happens after an earthquake like that in a place like that? They go like in a heartbeat from death to America to, hey, America, can you help us out here?
Oh, really?
And that's where they are. The Taliban begging Joe Biden to unfreeze assets to help them respond to the deadly earthquake. I mean, we left them $80 million worth of equipment, right?
Yeah, just sell off some of the tanks and the machine guns that we left for you, and you'll be fine.
There you go. Bad to worse in Russia. Vladimir Putin has put a brand new general in charge of Ukraine. I mean, you know, they had to look at Ukraine and go, come on. We can go in there, take it out, not a problem. And they're in a quagmire. I mean, then they're used to that. They were in a quagmire in Afghanistan for years, kind of like we were. But now they've defaulted on their debt for the first time since the communists took over. So the sanctions are having an impact. I think they're hurting Americans as much as they're hurting Russians, but they're having an impact.
Yeah, I mean, it only really works if we have, for us, it only works if we have something to replace it with, you know, like oil, for example. I mean, they're obviously blaming Putin way too much for the price of oil, given what we're doing with energy here at home. But it's like, okay, you're going to put a sanction on this product. You know, let's have something to replace it with. If it's manufacturing or consumer goods or something like that, let's build it in America, or let's buy it from an ally or somewhere else, not just put the sanction on and then wipe our hands, you know, and that's it.
Well, that's exactly what's going on. And in a related story, the president is at the G7 in Germany right now. And the latest news on Germany, because they were all in on the whole green energy deal.
Yeah.
Okay. America really ought to look at Germany as a cautionary tale because they got rid of their nuclear plants. They got rid of their coal plants. They were going to be wind and solar. And, oh, by the way, they were going to let Russia supply natural gas, right?
And oil.
Well, the natural gas and the oil got cut off.
Yeah.
And so Germany's over there going, now what? So you know what they're doing in Germany?
They're reopening the coal plants.
They are.
Yeah.
Reopening the coal-fired plants in one of the greenest countries on Earth. So that just tells you that we're not there scientifically yet where wind and solar can replace, you know, the natural things that we have in the ground.
Yeah, and it's funny because the pro-environmental activist people will point to European countries like Germany, France, Switzerland, and they'll say, look at this percentage of their energy that's coming from renewable sources. Well, it's a very narrow definition. They're saying the energy that they're producing of that, this percent is, but they have other energy coming from other places. I mean, they're still using oil and natural gas, obviously. And that's just the only difference is they're not producing it themselves. They're buying it from Russia or wherever they're buying it from. So
because it's cleaner that way. When you get the oil from Russia or someplace else, it's cleaner, right?
Yeah. They wash it with vodka first.
Just craziness going on in the world, and everybody's hair is on fire as we jump into really the the big thing that we're going to talk about today is the Supreme Court. And I thought it was really interesting, and I know you want to weigh in on this quite a bit as well, that the decisions were released in this order. The first was striking down New York's additional requirements for conceal and carry above registration and a background check. They had additional things on top of that. The court struck that down. They struck that down before they struck down Roe versus Wade. And my theory on that was because they wanted to help equip legal gun owners for the mostly peaceful protests that were about to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some memes to that effect, good Clarence Thomas memes. The Clarence Thomas memes this week are just flowing in. We're going to put some of them up on the screen. But maybe, but I just don't know, with some of these decisions, they don't take effect right away, or, there's kind of like the state has to figure out how they're going to deal with it and all that. But in terms of the gun decision, Clarence Thomas did write the majority opinion on that one, and it's essentially like an expansion of Heller. So I don't know if you remember the Heller decision in D.C. Basically, Washington, D.C. at the time was trying to make a law that people couldn't be armed with guns, like even in their own home. And the Supreme Court struck that down and said, no, you can be armed in your own home.
Right.
And this is sort of an expansion of that, where it's saying that not only do you have the constitutional right to be armed in your own home, but you have a constitutional right to defend yourself outside of your home. And that's what Clarence Thomas wrote in the majority opinion. So it's an expansion of Heller. It's a reaffirming of the Second Amendment, even in the most liberal state like New York, where they're really trying to crack down, put more restrictions on people. I mean, I've heard horror stories of people that live in New York City, especially the process that you have to go through in New York City to get a concealed carry permit. I mean, it's damn near impossible. It's as close to impossible as you can possibly get. You have to have a reference from like a legislator or the mayor or something like that, or you have to be ex-police or ex-military, and even then, it's not guaranteed. It's may issue is what they call it, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the difference between may issue states and shall issue states, but my hope is that this will make may issue a thing of the past.
All right. Well, the left's hair was on fire over this. Basically saying it's the end of the world as we know it. And I'm sitting there thinking, because as you know, and we've talked about on the podcast, I'm not really a gun guy. Not my thing. But I'm a defender of the Second Amendment. I think, if you want to have a gun, you ought to have a gun. But all this did in my mind was it evened the odds, because legal gun owners now have an easier path, because once you've, established that it's registered, you've gone through the background check, what more should you have to submit yourself to?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, it's still going to be very difficult in New York, I feel like, compared to other states like Missouri or Kansas. I mean, Missouri has constitutional carry, where you can legally carry without a permit. Now, if you do go through the process of getting the permit, as I have done, as my wife is doing right now, and other friends that I have done, you get more legal protections and things like that. In Kansas, they have constitutional carry. We have permitless carry. They have constitutional carry. In Kansas, there's no concealed carry permit at all. You just go and buy a gun and put it in your pocket. New York is still going to be much more restrictive than that. But the Supreme Court decision, again, is just reaffirming the basic constitutional right of Americans to defend themselves outside of their home.
All right. So before we get into the big story on Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court still has decisions to make this court session, and they've already released another one. The former high school football coach from Washington State, that was a big story, because I guess after a game, he would go to the 50-yard line by himself and pray, and the school district out there in Washington State just lost their mind over that and said, we got to fire this guy. We got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, I think, did we talk about this briefly on one of the other episodes? Yeah, so the court, ruled in his favor. I believe he was fired by the school.
Yeah.
So they ruled in his favor. I don't know if that's going to mean that he has to be rehired or whatever. If
Might be some back pay.
Yeah, some damages, that would be nice. But I mean, it's just so obvious, I think, to anyone with common sense that you have the right to express your religion. Right. I mean, it's not he wasn't. The First Amendment states there shall be no law establishing a state religion or expressing the free or restricting the free expression thereof. And you're not establishing a state religion by going out onto the field and having a prayer, or even encouraging other students to do so. There's no problem with that.
We call out hypocrisy a lot. And what do they do before every session of the House of Representatives or the Senate? They have a chaplain come in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there are people in Congress who don't worship the way that other people do, right? Yeah. Why do they still do that? Why are there words on top of the rostrum that says "In God We Trust"?
Yeah.
Why is "In God We Trust" on our money?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that the leftists that oppose this Supreme Court decision would probably oppose that too.
I'm sure they would.
I mean, it says it on our money.
Right.
We have "under God" in our Pledge of Allegiance that everyone says in school, and at
Declaration of Independence. The Constitution mentions God. I mean, there's God everywhere. They're going to have to really get out the old eraser here.
Right.
But as we get into this Supreme Court stuff, here's what I want you to keep in mind. The country is where the country is. It does not pull all the way to the left, as much as the left would want it. It doesn't pull all the way to the right. And when you start to get out of whack with that, in radio we say it's out of phase. Mm-hmm. When you get out of phase with all that, that's where stuff like this happens. And that's where the Supreme Court finally has stepped in with a 6-3 majority, and it says, too far. You can't go that far.
Yeah.
So that's where we are today. I don't know that these other decisions have been released, but another decision was whether the EPA has the authority to regulate carbon emissions from existing power plants. Because what the Biden administration and any Democrat administration, back to Obama, back to Clinton, they're trying to strangle these industries that are providing power for us, which to me is like, what is their end game? Do they want us to go back to being cavemen and clubbing our food?
It's the New World Order. It's the New World Order. It's the green agenda. It's Build Back Better. I mean, Biden has said it himself, and even Obama said it. When Obama was asked about energy prices, he said, we're going towards a green energy, and prices will necessarily skyrocket. That is verbatim what he said.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even, regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal-powered plants, natural gas, you name it, whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
Biden is saying the same thing now. He's saying, well, gas prices are high, inflation is high, but this is a transitory phase. This is a transitional period, and we're working towards something better. We're working towards the New World Order. We're working towards global energy policy.
And when it comes to the gas prices, we're going through an incredible transition that is taking place that, God willing, when it's over, will be stronger and the world will be stronger and less reliant on fossil fuels when this is over.
And really what it boils down to is outsourcing American sovereignty to multinational corporations and to the UN and to the WHO and to the G7 and everyone else. That's what it's all about.
Well, maybe we'll be like Germany and we'll have to rebuild all those plants again so that we can get a little bit of energy just to kind of stay warm. I don't know if they've released a decision on this yet, but it's probably coming this week by the time you hear this podcast, whether the Trump-era border policy known as Remain in Mexico will be upheld or not. As more migrants continue to come. And they've won the war on language, because even Republicans are saying migrants instead of illegal immigrants.
Right.
And
or aliens, as we used to say.
Illegal aliens.
Yeah.
But now there's sympathy for them because I guess 40 of them were killed in a vehicle that was trucked across the border, which is very sad. But had they stayed where they were, they'd be fine.
Yeah, whose fault is that? I mean, is it our fault for having borders that people are killed, illegally crossing it? No, it's not our fault.
Yeah. So Remain in Mexico, that's another decision that's going to come this week from the Supreme Court. So I just pulled out different things that have happened this week, and I know you're going to jump in with something on our website, dalecartersamerica.com. We're going to give you your own real estate. Because Kurt's like, he's like, he's like jumping out of the chair. So we're going to give you Kurt's Corner.
Yeah.
All right. And Kurt's Corner is going to debut with one of your favorite things, because they're all behind me here, the meme board, right?
Yeah. Well, sort of, yeah. So my first segment on the website, and we'll make an announcement on the Facebook page and Twitter and everything when it comes out. I don't know exactly when I'll be done with it, but I'm going to go through all of the worst takes on the Roe v. Wade decision and break them down and respond to them one by one, because they are just terrible. I mean, there's just like really disturbing and terrible stuff happening out there in the media and on social media and everything else in response to this decision that we're about to talk about.
And hair on fire. There's definitely, I mean, their hair is on fire so much that they're all going to be bald with scorch marks on top of their heads. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I put out my thoughts on it on our Facebook page. A lot of you have seen it. A lot of you have commented on it. But essentially, let's get this out there in bold and highlight it with yellow. The overturning of Roe versus Wade does not mean you cannot get an abortion. It returns the question back to the states the way it should have been all along. Mm-hmm. The 10th Amendment is so clear in this. It's not laid out in the Constitution,
right.
So it's a state issue, state by state. And as we go through this, you're going to see states, and it's already happening. Gavin Newsom in California signed a bill that upholds abortion rights in California. They're going to expand them. They'll expand them in New York. They'll expand them in the deep blue states that we have. And in the red states, it's going to be pushback.
Like Missouri, which had one of the states that had a so-called trigger bill that when Roe was overturned, it was automatically passed, basically, where abortion is pretty much banned in Missouri. I think it takes effect at the end of the month or something like that. So
yeah.
Very quickly.
So, the debate's going to happen here. And I thought, it's amazing to me, Kurt. First of all, I guess we should look at politicians. They're born liars to begin with, right? On both sides. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've all got the lying gene. It's why I'm a failed politician, because I told the truth. And right. I told the truth one too many times, and all of a sudden the vipers came after me. So I've been there, done that, and I've got that T-shirt. But Bill Clinton was a law professor, for God's sake. And he goes on Twitter and says it's wrong on the facts, it's wrong on the law, and he's wrong.
Yeah.
He's absolutely wrong. And he says that abortion rights, the vast majority of Americans support this. So if that's true, when this reverts to the states, ought to be a slam dunk.
Yeah, easily. Yeah. And, people will say stuff like, this is an attack on our democracy. They say that all the time. They say that about January 6th. They say it about everything Trump did. And they say that about Roe versus Wade, too. This is an attack on women. This is an attack on our democracy. When, in fact, this is one of the most pro-democracy Supreme Court decisions that there's ever been in the history of the court, because it takes something that was falsely given, falsely granted as this quote-unquote right. There is no constitutional right to abortion. You can't find it anywhere in the Constitution. It returns that to the states and therefore to the people, so that we have these 50 laboratories of democracy that are all going to do their own thing, and we already have companies coming out saying that they're going to pay for people to go out of state to get abortions, which is a whole other thing, and I can give my take on that too. But this is not like some attack on democracy. It's actually pro-democracy when you think about it.
Well, Harold Ford Jr., who's a Democrat that I respect, and you could probably count on one hand the number of Democrats these days that I respect, he says that maybe what's required here, and good luck to them getting it, is an amendment to the Constitution that enumerates privacy, not just on this issue, but on other issues where you would probably agree, and I would probably agree, but privacy would be covered in an amendment to the Constitution.
Is that supposed to cover abortion?
Well, that's where this penumbra thing came from, that there was a shadow of privacy that they pulled out of the 9th Amendment to supersede the 10th Amendment. That's where this whole thing got to where it is today. And I would say this, that the days of the Supreme Court being a legislative wing of the Democratic Party are over. I mean, Roe versus Wade absolutely happened because they didn't want to have this debate. Anything that they have not wanted to have a debate on for a long time, they had the Supreme Court as a willing partner taking the Constitution and putting it into a pretzel to come up with what they came up with, and those days are done.
Absolutely. And
For now,
yeah. And I mean, I could not be happier about it. Not only with the abortion issue specifically. I mean, I am very pro-life, and I'm happy for the decision in that way too. But just in terms of the procedure of the court and what the court is supposed to do as a co-equal branch of government, they're really returning to what they're supposed to do, and that is, I think, unprecedented in the modern history of the court. I mean, this past week that we just had, with all these decisions coming out. With Roe, ending Roe as the capstone, is the greatest week we've had in the Supreme Court in modern American history, bar none. It's not even close.
Certainly takes us back to what a constitutional, republic is supposed to be about under our Constitution.
Yeah. And I also think that Clarence Thomas, I mean, I'm the biggest Clarence Thomas fan. I think he's solidified his position as maybe the most important living American today.
Wow.
Seriously.
Don't oversell it or undersell it.
I'm serious, man.
But let's take I've talked a little bit about where the country is, and I get that you are so pro-life that there are probably no exceptions on abortion. None whatsoever.
Very, very few, if any, I would say.
You're on the far right then. On the far left is, the baby is born, you get to decide, should we stick scissors in the back of the neck, and there are people who have that view. Mm-hmm. I think the country is somewhere in the middle. And that's why Roe versus Wade stood as long as it did.
Right.
Ronald Reagan said he was going to get it repealed, did not do it. George W. Bush was going to get it repealed. George H.W. Bush was going to get it repealed. They didn't get it done. Why did it happen? Okay, here's what I think. I think the country is like, if you take care of this in the early first trimester, you get this done, the country was going to look the other way. Maybe you wouldn't look the other way, but the country was going to look the other way. When we get into partial birth abortion and the left just picking at the scab and picking at the scab and taking it further and further all the way to partial birth abortion and deciding after the fact, as the former Virginia governor was saying.
Yeah.
That's where this thing became a bridge too far, and that's why it fell.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think public opinion has shifted in the past, certainly in the past 20 years, but also maybe in the past 10 or the past 5 years. I mean, we have more information coming out, and that's the thing. Like, people, the criticism of the pro-life movement is always like this religious thing. It's always like, oh, you're pushing your religion on everyone. And to me, that has nothing to do with it, really. I mean, my religion is sort of a separate thing. My pro-life position has nothing to do with religion. It's purely based on, objective morality, the definition of a human life, and science. And the more information, the more science that comes out is all in the pro-life direction. We can see a heartbeat. We can see that this is a human being. And I think more people are realizing that. And you're right. I don't think that everyone in America is, totally anti-abortion in all cases at all times. But the movement is shifting in that direction, where I think that the consensus of America is we shouldn't have these late-term abortions.
Right.
Maybe there should be more restrictions at some point. Then you combine that with Donald Trump, who literally campaigned on this issue. I mean, I'll post the clip that I posted on Facebook of him in the debates saying that he was going to appoint pro-life justices.
The court protect the Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
He understood where the American people were going as well. And I think that, unlike these other presidents, unlike Bush, who appointed, a liberal justice and appointed John Roberts, who is quasi-liberal, Trump actually understood that he had to appoint real constitutional justices, and he did that. And that's why we're here. We have Donald Trump to thank.
Okay, well, now the liberals' hair is on fire beyond Roe versus Wade. They're like Clarence Thomas, who is your hero right now.
Love him.
Yeah.
Love him.
He's leading the way and saying the court should reconsider marriage equality, contraception, in vitro fertilization, and that's what the left is saying, that, okay, you lost this, and now they're going to do all of this. I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. he is one justice, and he can't get all of that done.
Maybe, but I mean, I think he is correct in his assessment of that situation, because it's all the same thing. It's all of these quote unquote rights that have been, made up out of whole cloth by the court, where the court doesn't have jurisdiction over that. The 10th Amendment has jurisdiction over that. And Clarence Thomas understands that. He's not saying that all of these things should be banned. He's saying that these things are not under the umbrella of the court.
No, they're
that
not.
They should, and he understands that. He's a true constitutionalist. He's a true textualist on the court, which is, I mean, we should have 9 of those. That is the definition of what the court should do. So
it is.
He's the only one, I think, that really understands that. That's why he's the best Supreme Court justice. That's why he's the most the most consequential American.
Well, this is that short circuit again, because these are things they didn't want to talk about. And I was thinking about, it's like marriage equality, okay?
Yeah.
There's nowhere in the Constitution that talks about marriage, because marriage is a state issue.
Right.
When I got married the last time, when you got married the first time, we went to the courthouse and we got a Missouri marriage license, right? We didn't get a federal marriage license.
Right.
That is a state issue, just like all of these are state issues.
And even if you did get a federal marriage license, which again, we don't, but even if you did, it's not a Supreme Court marriage license. It would be something that would be passed by Congress or whatever, so.
Well, and that's why, if you go back to the beginning of this podcast, when we tore apart the Constitution and we talked about what every branch was responsible for, I mean, it's like the legislative branch makes the law. It's the Article I power. It's the most important. They don't act like it. They act like the president is like a king now, and the Supreme Court gets to make these decisions over here. But Article I is Congress, and they're supposed to do all this. The president is supposed to enforce those laws, the executive branch. And then when there's a question about whether something fits under this Constitution or not, the Supreme Court weighs in.
Right.
But they got way away from that, and now this is coming back to roost. Chicken's coming back to roost. I think we had an whole episode.
Congress has ceded their power deliberately to the executive branch and to the judicial branch over the past 50, 60, 70, even 100 years. I mean, going back to the foundation of the so-called administrative state, under presidents like Woodrow Wilson, even Teddy Roosevelt, we can look at how this all started, how Congress has, again, ceded their authority in legislating to the other two branches of government. And now we have we're in this place where, especially people on the left, they expect that. And it's the ends justify the means. They want abortion on demand. They don't care if it comes from the court or from the president. I mean, Joe Biden could tomorrow say, I'm going to sign an executive order, in quote, like in parentheses, illegitimately, but he could say, I'm going to sign an executive order granting the federal right to abortion on demand up to the point of birth, and liberals would celebrate because they don't care about the process. They don't care about the constitutionality of anything. They care about what they want and just getting it by any means necessary.
Well, he doesn't have that power.
I know, but I'm saying if he did, they wouldn't. It's like, what I'm saying.
I don't want the right to get their hair on fire. The president does not have that power.
But you see what I'm saying, though, like they would never say that. They would never say, oh, the president doesn't have that power. We have to pass this through Congress. They don't care about that.
And Biden's already come out and said he's not for court packing. So, I mean, that's the left wants to get that done. They look at a decision like this and say, well, we need, what's the number? We need 5 more liberal justices.
27 justices.
Right now we need it. Okay, so here's some of the silliness that's going on. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, they had an event, a pride event in Grant Park in Chicago. She's the mayor of Chicago, which is the murder capital of the United States.
Yay!
Every weekend, it's the murder capital of the United States. She basically cussed out Clarence Thomas at her event and says she's not backing down. Not backing down.
Now we know what happened with the Supreme Court yesterday. And if you read Clarence Thomas' concurrence, he said, thank you, fuck Clarence Thomas.
Oh, fuck you, Clarence Thomas!
He thinks we are going to stand idly by when they take our rights.
I said what I said. That's what her tweet says.
Let her get as angry as she wants, man. Seriously.
I'm just thinking she's got more to worry about.
Yeah.
If your city is the murder capital of the United States and every weekend, you're getting 50 people wounded by gunfire and up to 10 killed every weekend, you've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, you've got bigger fish to fry, and then it says more about you than it does about the decision or about Clarence Thomas. This doesn't just go for Lori Lightfoot. This goes for anybody. The people that are freaking out over this, the people that have their hair on fire, that are out in the street screeching and, flopping around on the ground or whatever they're doing. The fact that they're getting this upset over not being able to kill babies is, I think, just very telling. Very telling. Very telling.
Okay, so a new study out that suggests thousands of women will come to Los Angeles for abortions each year now that the Supreme Court has overturned Roe versus Wade. So here's a thought, and you said you had a thought on this. I want to hear what you have to say. But maybe instead of attack ads, these liberal billionaires should fund abortion travel. It's like, hey, come to L.A., go to Disneyland, and lose your baby.
So I'm gonna tie this into which I think maybe is where you're going with this. All of these companies that are coming out now and saying that they're going to pay $4,000 or whatever for employees or dependents that are on their medical plans to travel to another state to get an abortion. I cannot, and this is not necessarily an original take. I've heard other people say this too, but I can't think of anything more dystopian than a company paying for you to go kill your child so that you can stay on the company dime and keep working, keep slaving away for the corporation. What's more important, making $12.50 an hour at Starbucks or having a child and being a mother? And Starbucks is going to say it's more important for you to stay at Starbucks and keep working for us and keep making us money for $12.50 an hour. So we'll pay for you to go kill your kid. I mean, does it get any sicker than that? It's just unbelievable to me.
Well, here's an original take from me. What a great time to have had a vasectomy. Guys who've had them should be advertising.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah.
I am one, and my wife would kill me if she heard me say that. So we didn't say that.
Does she listen to the podcast?
Well, let's hope not. At least not that part, because I didn't really say that. But that's where we are, though.
Yeah, and that brings me to another really hilarious take from all this. And again, I'll cover this more on the new Kurt's Corner segment on the website. But you have like feminists and women coming out now and saying, well, if we can't have abortions, then let's stop giving men sex. Let's close our legs. Let's not have sex with strangers anymore so that we can punish men for this decision. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that anyways. Like, this is the consequence of, and again, I'm no saint, trust me, but at least I understand that there are consequences for your actions, So okay, so you're going to become a better person. You're going to stop having sex with strangers.
And you're the wrong guy. You're the wrong guy for me
Pull
to
my
ask.
ear.
You're the wrong guy for me to ask this. We should find a woman somewhere and ask this question, because my assertion is the country was okay with a restricted abortion at 15 weeks. 15 weeks is what? That's almost 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where a restriction was put in place, and the left's hair was on fire. They wanted abortion on demand all the way to 9 months. Why? I mean, okay, let's think about a real person, okay? You've had sex with somebody and you're pregnant. Oops, I didn't want to be pregnant, okay? Why would you wait 9 months to take care of that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, as soon as you became pregnant, you knew you were pregnant, if you didn't want to keep it for whatever reason, wouldn't you take care of it then? At 4 weeks.
Yeah.
When do they know? 4 weeks, 5 weeks?
It's a very good question.
Why does it have to be 9 months?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I mean, again, because I think I'm a little bit further right on this issue than you are. I mean, people talk about pro-choice. The choice that you make, and I've said this on the podcast before, the choice that you make is in the bedroom. Once you make that choice, that's the pro-choice argument. Once you make any choice in life, you have free will. You have the free will to do whatever you want. You're not being forcibly impregnated by some alien beam coming from outer space. You're making a choice, and there are consequences to that choice. And that's true for anything in life. I could go out into the kitchen right now. There's bottles of liquor in there. I could chug a whole bottle of vodka and get fired today. And that's the choice that I made, and that's the consequences for my actions. So, I mean, I just don't see how people don't understand that. They're just totally disregarding this other human life that is now in the picture based on the choice that you have made. And that's the pro-choice argument. I mean, it's as simple as that, in my opinion. But you're right. There is, I think the American consensus, and something that I would certainly agree with, is that there's varying levels of how bad, I guess it is, you could say. And the question that you posed is a great question. I mean, why does it have to be 9 months? Why does it have to be potentially even after birth? I mean, what is the point of that? Why? What are you accomplishing by doing that? And who's really waiting till that point, to make a decision?
I'm just thinking of the individual woman and the conversation she's got to have with her family about this, because it's got to be a very personal, I would think in most cases, very tragic. I'm not cynical enough to believe that there are people using abortion for birth control. It's like, I'm going to go have sex with as many guys as I want, and every time I get pregnant, I'll just take care of it. I think it's a very personal decision. It's a very heartfelt decision that's made in a lot of families. I just don't see why it has to go out that far, and I think that's why in states that had that restriction, it was a reasonable restriction. And then you've got this. CVS, Rite Aid, and Walmart are limiting purchases of the emergency contraceptive pills commonly known as Morning After and Plan B. The pills have been in short supply since Friday's Supreme Court decision. Okay, so again, if you have this, and there's a pharmacological solution for it. You have sex with a guy, and there's no way you want to raise kids with this guy. You're at a point in life where you don't want to have kids right now. There's a pill you can take.
Yeah, and I just want to drill back down to another thing, too, that you just brought up. I mean, people will talk about all of these very rare cases, like rape, incest, blah, blah, blah. And we can talk about that, but that is not the majority of what's happening. I mean, you said that like women, just having promiscuous sex and just having abortions because they don't want babies. I mean, you can look at the breakdown. I've put it on the screen before, and I'll do it again. You can look at the breakdown of reasons why people get an abortion. Rape is like 0.3%. The vast majority, like 93, 95%, is elective. No reason given, elective. So it's people that just don't want a baby. And so, what are we even talking about here? It's not like... Again, it's not like some weird thing where, people are being forced to become pregnant and then we're forcing them to carry the baby. No, they made a decision and now they just make another decision that they don't want it. So, we have to, I think, across the board, just return to a sense of responsibility in this country, because with freedom comes responsibility. The founders understood that, and everyone sane in America before 20 years ago understood that freedom comes with responsibility, and rights come with duty. And you have a duty to your community, to your family, and a responsibility for your actions.
All right. Well, democracy in action. The debates are going to happen in 50 states. Some are going to go this way. Some are going to go that way. I just think that at the end of the day, there's a position not quite as far right as yours, and definitely not as far left as, let's say, Stacey Abrams or AOC. I think that it's probably closer to you than them, but it's definitely on this side.
Yeah, and the cards will fall where they will. I think we're going to see, as I've said before, and as I said at the live event, this is not the end of the fight. This is the beginning of the fight. And so we're going to see the cards fall in every state where they're going to fall. We'll see fights in every state to settle on what legislation they want, and we'll go from there.
All right. And Kurt's Corner will be debuting soon at Dale Carter's America. I can hardly wait. I know you can't either. All right. Want to mention Bob Watson again, State Farm agent in Blue Springs for 5 decades. Great guy. He'll take care of you. And the shirt's really nice.
It looks nice. It looks comfortable.
You got one too, right?
Yeah, I got one. He pitched it as a golf shirt. So I asked him after we were done recording, I said, is this shirt going to make me better at golf? And he said no. So,
and I don't play golf anymore, but I'm taking the shirt.
Okay.
I don't know if you get a shirt, if you become one of his clients or not, but he'll definitely take care of you at a time that you need taken care of, whether it's your auto, your home, your life. You got a business, you got a boat, you're going to be out on the lake, you need to have that insured too. Umbrella policies. If you have a cement pond at your house, as I do, you better have an umbrella policy, because a guy like Kurt might come over and do a little slip and fall and say that might have been a little wet, and next thing you know, half my assets are gone.
You know, I've been trying to get an invitation to your house for like the whole time we've been doing this podcast, and now the truth comes out that the real reason I want to come over is so that I can, have an accident and then take advantage of your Bob Watson insurance policy.
All right, Bob Watson's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. He is one of the sponsors of our podcast, and we really appreciate him. Meanwhile, while all the Scotus stuff was happening across from the U.S. Capitol, there was other news that was made. Jerome Powell, he was testifying before the Senate, and I love this. And I've told you where the clip is. Hopefully you're going to be able to drop that in. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to have to do some work, but I'll find it.
All right. So Jerome Powell is testifying before the Senate, and the senator from Tennessee asks him a very clear question, and Powell, who was just reappointed by Joe Biden, basically answered it.
Given how inflation has escalated over the past 18 months, would you say that the war in Ukraine is the primary driver of inflation in America?
No, inflation was high before, certainly before the war in Ukraine broke out.
So there you go. Inflation was in place well before Vladimir Putin invaded the Ukraine. You and I know that, but they've tried to sell it at the White House that it's Putin's price hike. Everything is related to Putin. And I thought about this because Democrats, for years and years, they make fun of Republicans because we want tax cuts, and they call that, taking care of the wealthy and trickle-down economics, right? It'll trickle down from the top. Well, that's exactly what the Biden economy is. It's trickle-down. He has screwed up our energy economy so badly that it all trickles down. Everything that's going up, whether it's groceries, gasoline for sure, everything you can think of that you buy, it relates back to fuel costs.
Yeah, and I mean the opposite side of the whole trickle down economics slur that they use all the time. Again, going back to the Reagan years, that was something that the left coined against Reagan's sort of free market economic policies, is that when prices go up, whether it be taxes or the price of food or the price of gas, the people that are most affected by that, disproportionately affected by that, are lower or middle income people. The people who are
We're all paying it.
Yeah, but the people who are wealthy, I mean, some guy out there that's got $1 million yacht and 5 homes, $5 gallon gas is not going to affect him as much because he can still afford it. It's the people who, have to drive to work every day to make $12 an hour who are going to be disproportionately affected by that. So it's ironic that, we can say, trickle down economics and use all of these phrases to sort of attack the free market economic side of the political spectrum. Yet when we don't do that, when we have the opposite of that, when we try and control prices, when we try and control energy, when we try and control the Fed and all of this stuff, interest rates, we see the opposite, which is that it's actually these people who you are purporting to help that are affected the most.
I think that's the way we change it, though. We call it Biden's trickle-down economy, and it starts up there with energy, and it comes down to all of us. Okay, January 6th hearings continue. In fact, while we're recording this, the committee on this, the unselect committee is what Trump's calling them. I wish he'd leave them alone and just bury this thing like a cat turd, but that's not in his that's not in his toolkit. So they say they've got one of his assistants. It's a bombshell. New evidence. This is going to really bring it all down.
It's like the boy who cried wolf. They keep doing that. They're like, and it's not just with January 6th, it's with Trump, overall. How many times has Adam Schiff gone on CNN and said, this is the one that's really going to get him. This is the one that's really going to get him. God. It's at least a dozen times he's gone on TV. He's like, I have evidence that is going to destroy the Trump presidency. And they're like, oh, great. Show us the evidence. And he's like, I can't, but I'll keep coming on CNN to talk about it.
And they'll keep letting him come on CNN.
Oh, yeah.
I saw Bill Maher had a take on something, and I kind of agree with him. I've made it very clear that I don't want to see Donald Trump run again. I'm ready for a new generation, and if that's Ron DeSantis, I think that's the way to go. But Bill Maher, who's very liberal, said that Donald Trump could win the White House in 2024 in a walk if he would do one thing. You know what the one thing is?
I don't know.
Never mention 2020 again. And he can't do it. He can't do it. He would go to every rally and within the first 45 seconds would say, well, you can do it better than I can. They stole the election from me, but I'm back. They stole it. It was illegitimate. Is it close?
Not really, but that was great. That was great.
But you know he would do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he can help himself. I don't know if I necessarily fully agree with that analysis that of Bill Maher's analysis, but I mean, it is true that he can't help himself. I mean, he's going to talk
Oh my
about
God,
it.
he
till
could win the
cows come
election,
home.
Kurt, if he'd go out there and say, "You're better off than when I left."
Yeah. I
Pretty
mean, that
evident
is
that we're not.
That is definitely the simplest and most direct path to a Trump win in 2024 is just saying, I mean, literally, because I mean, I see it all the time. You have people that are on the left, a lot of the same people freaking out over Roe v. Wade and stuff like that. They will complain about Joe Biden and gas prices and everything else because, I mean, what people vote on the most, we were just talking about it earlier with Tony, you know, their number one and number two issues are gas prices and inflation. And that's never going to change. As long as, you know, as long as we live in reality and people are using their own money to buy goods and services, that will always be their number one priority. So, I mean, Trump could just go out there and say, look at gas prices now, look at gas prices when I was president, and then, you know, make that his whole campaign.
Well, the only other president we've had named Ron took out an incumbent Democrat with a lousy economy with one sentence. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Right. Did anyone call him Ron, by the way? Maybe.
Well, Ronald Reagan.
Maybe his wife.
Ronnie,
yeah.
Yeah.
His wife called him Ronnie, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying Ron DeSantis is my guy for the next time.
Yeah.
So the other Ron that we've had is Ronald Reagan. And he said, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is America better off than it was 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Trump could go out there right now. He wouldn't have to mention the quote-unquote rigged election and blah, 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 blah. All he'd have to say is America better off than it was when I left?
Yeah, that's very true.
And if he could discipline himself, but he can't, and so that's why I'm ready to move on. We'll see where the country is and all that. But that's my take on the January 6 hearings. The other thing I would say about the January 6 hearings is this is a take that Brit Hume had on Twitter. I agree with Brit Hume. If anything that we pull from these sham hearings that they're having on Capitol Hill, it's that the system worked. You had a guy in the White House who basically was trying to pull every lever he could. He went to every court in this country where he had standing, and they all said, it looks right to us. He went to Republicans who were ensconced in their state houses and said, I need this, and they said no. So the system worked.
Well,
whether you agree with it or not, the system worked. I know you don't, but I'm telling you this, and I'm a system guy. The system worked. You know, and it's interesting that, you know, Trump is being excoriated for saying, you know, it was a fake election and a sham and all that. Yet Stacey Abrams still thinks she won in Georgia. Hillary Clinton still thinks she beat Donald Trump.
Right.
And they don't say boo about that.
Right.
But Donald Trump does this, and we get all this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's obvious that it's only okay to question an election if you're a Democrat. That should be obvious to anyone at this point. But yeah, I mean, we've rehashed all of that stuff. I mean, I do have a lot of questions that have not been answered that I think are very troubling. And so in that sense, I don't think that the system worked because none of that stuff was really
The system worked
explored.
in that we had a transition of power. You can disagree with how it happened, but no court where a lawsuit was filed said, yeah, we agree with you. Not one. Okay? So you've
Right,
got to
but
believe that every Republican out there was in on some kind of scam to make, you know, Joe Biden the president. Now, there were laws that had to be tightened up, and they were, and the Democrats squealed like stuck hogs, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just, I don't want to get too into it, but I mean, the system working is sort of like a loose phrase. I mean, it's kind of vague. Like, is the system working with the January 6th hearing? I mean,
No.
they're doing a legitimate quote unquote hearing. You know, they went through all the proper channels to establish this committee and have this hearing, and they're not, you know, like.
Not really, because they're not letting Republicans. Typically, on a committee like this, you'll go to the Republican leader and
They
let
have
him
Liz Cheney.
You'll go to the Republican leader. Liz Cheney's not the Republican leader. You would go to the minority leader in the House and say, you know, we're going to give you half the slots here. He wasn't allowed to put anybody on the committee.
That's
so it's
true.
illegitimate on those grounds. But, you know, we had a peaceful transfer of power. Donald Trump wasn't there, but it wasn't like some third world jungle republic where, you know, it was done at the end of a bayonet or a gun. I mean,
Right.
we did get that transfer of power. Now we tighten things up. we're going to have to pay the price for what happened, and then America will go back the other way. That's what America does.
Yeah, and I don't think that was ever going to be the case. I mean, you had people, again, people on the left and in the media saying that they were going to have to, drag Trump out of the White House, at the end of a gun or in handcuffs or something like that. I mean, I don't think that was ever going to happen. But yeah, I mean, at the very least, we need to address what happened, figure out what happened, and fix those issues. Close these all of these extra processes that were put in place because of COVID. And that's a whole different thing, which maybe is a little bit more conspiratorial or whatever, but why those were even put in the first place before the 2020 election. But, we need to close all of that stuff, get back to election day, not election month, not election season. And at the very least, we need to do that so that we can be sure moving forward that our elections are secure.
I agree. We'll end on a moment of agreement, and I'll leave you with this. Talk radio legend Howard Stern is teasing a presidential run.
Oh, God.
On his show on Monday, he said Friday's Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade makes it more likely that he'll make a run for the White House in 2024. He said he'd run on two promises: to make the country fair again and to end the Electoral College.
You know what my first thought is? Remember how big of a deal it was when that Trump Access Hollywood tape came out?
Which one are we talking about?
When he was with Billy Bush in the thing, he said, grab him by the pussy. Yeah. And so, I mean, think about how many, exponentially more tapes there are of Howard Stern saying all kinds of shit like that. I mean, he had the strippers in the studio and, more. Just leave it at that. But, all that's probably going to come out.
Watch the movie Private Parts. It'll tell you all you need to know about candidate Howard Stern, who is not a serious candidate.
No.
Would not be.
He didn't leave his basement for 2.5 years, from what I've heard. I don't listen to Howard Stern, but I do follow people that do listen to Howard Stern, and my understanding is he, was kind of a germaphobe, or he was super afraid of COVID or whatever, so he never went out. I don't know if he's still, cooped up in his basement or whatever. How's he going to campaign?
Well, I mean, how did Joe Biden campaign? Maybe that's the blueprint.
That's true.
Who knows?
That's true.
On that note, with a lot on the plate here today, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.